Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started on an ordinary afternoon, the kind of day that felt quiet yet strangely heavy, like something was about to happen that could change everything. The house was calm, the sun pouring gently through the curtains, and I thought I was alone. But then I heard the faint sound of running water upstairs. At first, I brushed it off, assuming it was nothing unusual. Yet, something about the timing, the stillness of the house, and that soft echo of water made me pause. That was the very moment my story began to unfold in a way I never expected. Living under one roof with family can sometimes bring people closer than they ever imagined. When my stepson moved in, I thought it would simply be about adjusting to new routines, respecting boundaries, and finding balance in a blended family. What I never prepared myself for was the intensity of emotions that slowly built between us, emotions that felt both confusing and impossible to ignore. He was grown now, no longer the young boy I first met. At 22, he carried himself with confidence, but there was also a quiet vulnerability about him that made it hard not to notice. That day, as I walked down the hallway and passed by the slightly open bathroom door, I froze. Steam curled out into the hallway, and the sound of the shower was steady, hypnotic even. It should have been a private, ordinary moment. Yet, something in me shifted when I realized who was inside. My heart raced, and my mind spun with thoughts I didn't want to admit to myself. I knew I should keep walking, respect the moment, and never look back. But instead, I lingered, torn between curiosity and a dangerous pull I couldn't explain. The air felt charged, as though the house itself knew a secret was about to be revealed. In that instant, I realized how blurry the line between right and wrong could feel when emotions take over. The truth is, when you spend so much time with someone, you start noticing the small details others overlook, the way they smile when they're nervous, the quiet strength in their voice, the way they look at you when they think you're not paying attention. Those little things add up, and before you know it, you find yourself standing in a hallway, wondering if crossing that line is even possible. I took one step closer, then another, my thoughts louder than the water running on the other side of the door. My pulse quickened, and it felt like I was about to make a choice I couldn't take back. Every part of me screamed to stop, yet something stronger kept pushing me forward. That moment became the turning point, the beginning of a story filled with passion, secrets, and decisions that would forever change the way I saw myself and the people closest to me. But what happened next? That's where the real story begins. I didn't go into that bathroom. Instead, I walked back down the hallway and sat on the edge of my bed, trying to calm the storm inside me. My hands were trembling, and I couldn't tell if it was fear, guilt, or something else entirely. That sound of running water kept echoing in my mind, reminding me of the line I almost crossed. It was just a moment, just a thought, but sometimes, a single thought can open a door you can't easily close. Later that evening, he came downstairs, his hair still damp, a towel draped casually over his shoulders. He smiled at me the way he always did, easy, warm, almost innocent, but now I couldn't look at him without remembering how close I had come to stepping over that invisible boundary. I told myself to shake it off, to act normal, but the truth is, nothing felt normal anymore. I realized then that what I felt wasn't just a passing thought. It had been building slowly, quietly, in the background of our lives. When he first moved in, I noticed how grown up he had become. At 22, he wasn't the awkward teenager I once remembered. He carried himself with a kind of maturity that surprised me, yet he still had those boyish moments that made him seem gentle and approachable. Over time, we spent hours talking, sometimes about nothing at all: music, school, his plans for the future. Other times, he shared things with me he never shared with anyone else. Late-night conversations in the kitchen, laughing over simple meals, those little moments made it easy to forget the roles we were supposed to play. That closeness was dangerous, though. I started to notice the way his eyes lingered a little longer when we talked, or how he'd lean in just slightly when I was speaking, as if my words mattered more than anyone else's. Maybe it was just my imagination, maybe I was reading too much into it, but once you start noticing those details, it's impossible to unsee them. The house began to feel smaller, like every room carried its own secret weight. I found myself remembering tiny things: his laugh, the way he brushed his hair back, even the sound of his footsteps in the hallway. It wasn't supposed to mean anything, but it did. And with every passing day, the tension between us grew heavier, though neither of us dared to put it into words. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing one wrong step could change everything forever. One night, as we sat together in the living room watching a movie, the silence between us spoke louder than the film on the screen. Our shoulders brushed, just barely, but even that was enough to send a rush through me. I glanced at him, and for a split second, his eyes met mine. There was something unspoken there, something both of us understood but didn't dare acknowledge. I excused myself, pretending I needed water, but really I just needed to breathe. Standing alone in the kitchen, I asked myself the same questions over and over. Was this real? Was I imagining it? Or was he feeling the same pull I was trying so hard to resist? That uncertainty was the hardest part. Every day became a test of self-control, a battle between logic and desire. And even though nothing had happened yet, I knew deep down that it was only a matter of time before something would. The days that followed felt heavier, like every ordinary moment carried a hidden layer underneath. On the surface, everything seemed normal. We ate dinner together, exchanged small jokes, and went about our routines. But beneath that normalcy was an unspoken awareness, something neither of us dared to name. It was in the way our eyes lingered just a second too long, in the silence that filled the spaces between our words. It felt like a quiet storm building, and I didn't know how much longer I could pretend I didn't feel it. The real conflict wasn't just inside me. It was also in the way life kept placing us together, almost as if fate was testing how strong my resolve really was. He would help me with things around the house, small tasks like fixing a shelf or carrying groceries, and each time I caught myself watching him, noticing the way he moved, the way he smiled when he was focused. Those moments were harmless on their own, but stacked together, they became a weight on my chest that I couldn't ignore. One night, the power went out during a thunderstorm. The house was wrapped in darkness, the only light coming from the flashes in the sky. We lit a candle and sat at the dining table, the flickering glow making everything feel strangely intimate. The rain hammered on the roof, and for some reason, the storm made it easier for us to talk about things we usually avoided. He asked about my past, about the choices I made before this family came together. His questions were thoughtful, almost too personal, but the way he listened made me want to keep talking. That night planted something new between us. It wasn't just attraction, it was connection. A deep, unsettling closeness that made the line between family and something more blur even further. I realized that the conflict wasn't just about resisting temptation. It was also about what this connection meant. Was it wrong because of the roles we played? Or was it only wrong because of how the world would judge it? Meanwhile, life outside the house added another layer to the story. Friends and neighbors visited often, and I found myself hyper-aware whenever he was around them. Did anyone notice the tension between us? Was it written all over our faces, or was it my guilty conscience making me paranoid? Even the smallest glance between us in public felt risky, like a secret we were barely holding on to. The more I tried to pull away, the closer life seemed to push us. There was a moment when I caught him looking at me in the reflection of a window, his expression soft but intense. He looked away quickly, but I knew what I saw. It wasn't just me. He felt it too. That realization only made the conflict harder, because now it wasn't just my imagination, it was real, alive, growing with every passing day. The subplot that haunted me most was the possibility of someone else finding out. How would my partner react if even a hint of suspicion arose? What would happen to this family we worked so hard to build? The thought of breaking everything apart terrified me, but the truth was that the temptation didn't vanish just because I feared the consequences. If anything, the fear made the emotions sharper, more dangerous. Every choice I made began to feel like walking a tightrope. Do I keep the distance, pretend none of this is happening, and bury these feelings deep inside? Or do I let myself fall into something I know could change everything forever? The turning point came quietly, without warning, on a night that should have been ordinary. The house was still, the air heavy with late summer warmth. I couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs to pour myself a glass of water. The lights were dim, just the soft glow from the kitchen lamp, and I thought I was alone. But then I heard footsteps behind me, slow and hesitant. When I turned, it was him. He stood there in the doorway, his hair messy from bed, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of us said a word. The silence pressed against us like something alive, filling the space with everything we'd been holding back. My heart raced, not just from surprise but from the undeniable pull I felt every time we were too close for too long. He broke the silence first, his voice quiet but steady. He asked why I was awake, why I seemed restless lately. The way he looked at me made it impossible to lie, but I couldn't tell the truth either. Instead, I gave a half answer, something vague about stress and sleepless nights. But he didn't look away. His eyes stayed locked on mine, searching, waiting, as if he already knew there was more I wasn't saying. That moment felt dangerous, like standing on the edge of something we could never take back. I tried to turn away, to busy myself with the glass in my hand, but then he stepped closer. The air between us changed instantly, thicker, harder to breathe. Every part of me screamed to move, to end the moment, but I didn't. I couldn't. We stood in the kitchen, inches apart, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the silence. I could feel the tension radiating between us, a mix of fear, longing, and something neither of us could name. I thought about all the times I had told myself this couldn't happen, all the reasons why it was wrong, and yet in that moment, none of those reasons seemed strong enough to pull me away. It felt like the entire house was holding its breath, waiting to see what we would do next. His eyes flickered toward me again, softer this time, almost vulnerable. And for the first time, I wondered if he had been fighting the same battle I had been fighting all along. The suspense was unbearable, the weight of unspoken words and hidden feelings pressing down harder than ever. We were teetering on the edge of something we both knew was coming, but neither of us dared to say aloud. And that's where everything reached its breaking point, two people caught between what they should do and what they couldn't resist. The air between us was so charged that night in the kitchen, I thought for sure something would happen. But just as the moment seemed ready to break open, we both froze at the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Headlights swept across the window, and in an instant, the spell was shattered. He stepped back quickly, and I gripped the counter, trying to steady my breathing. It was late, too late for visitors. My heart jumped when I realized who it was. His father. The timing couldn't have been worse. I hadn't expected him home that night, and suddenly the secret tension that had been building felt even more dangerous. I could see the same panic in my stepson's eyes as we silently agreed to act normal. Within minutes, the front door opened, and his father stepped inside, tired but cheerful, unaware of the storm that had just been swirling in his own kitchen. That was the twist I hadn't prepared for. Up until then, the conflict was mostly between me and my own emotions, but now it felt like the stakes had doubled. Every glance, every word, every move carried the weight of what could be discovered. We sat together, the three of us, talking casually as if nothing was unusual. But under the surface, I was terrified. Could his father sense something? Did he notice the way we avoided eye contact, the way silence seemed to hang just a little too long between us? The days after that night grew even more complicated. His father decided to spend more time at home, which meant more family dinners, more shared evenings, more moments where the three of us were together under one roof. On the surface, it should have made things easier, a reminder of the boundaries that existed. But instead, it only made the tension more unbearable. Every time my stepson and I were in the same room, it felt like a secret on the verge of exploding. And then came the second twist, the one I didn't see coming. One afternoon, as I was tidying up the living room, I found something on the coffee table, a journal. At first, I thought it was just a notebook left behind, but when I opened it, my breath caught. It was his. My stepson's handwriting filled the pages, raw and unguarded. I told myself I shouldn't read further, but I couldn't stop. His words revealed thoughts, emotions, and confessions that mirrored the very struggle I'd been carrying inside. He wrote about sleepless nights, about the confusion of feeling something forbidden, about wanting to say it out loud, but fearing what it might do to the family. In that moment, everything shifted again. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't alone in this. The tension wasn't just one-sided, it was shared, real, undeniable. And knowing that truth made it both harder and more dangerous to keep holding back. That discovery raised the stakes in a way nothing else had. Now I knew he was fighting the same battle, carrying the same secret, and longing for the same thing. But it also meant the risk of everything unraveling was greater than ever. What if his father ever saw this journal? What if someone else found out? The fragile balance we had been clinging to could collapse in an instant. Every day after that felt like walking through fire, trying to act normal while knowing what I knew. Our secret connection had grown stronger, but so had the fear of being exposed. The suspense of it all consumed me, making every glance, every conversation feel like it could tip us over the edge. The night the truth finally came to a breaking point started like any other. Dinner was quiet, filled with the usual small talk, but underneath, I carried the weight of that journal I had found. Every time I looked at him, I saw the unspoken confession written across those pages, and I knew we couldn't go on pretending forever. His father sat across from us, unaware of the storm, sitting right at his own table. My hands shook as I passed him the bread, my mind racing with what would happen if even a hint of our secret slipped through. Later that evening, when his father went upstairs early to rest, the house fell into silence. My stepson lingered in the living room, the glow of the lamp soft against his face. He looked at me in a way that told me he knew I had seen the journal. For a long moment, neither of us spoke, but the silence said everything. Finally, he stood and crossed the room, his voice barely above a whisper. He admitted what I already knew, that the feelings I had been struggling to hide were the same ones he carried too. Hearing it out loud sent a rush of fear and relief through me all at once. But just as the moment hung between us, a sound from the staircase broke the air. His father was standing halfway down, his expression frozen, eyes sharp as if he had heard enough to piece everything together. My heart stopped. Time felt suspended as the three of us stood there in a triangle of silence. I was sure this was the end, that everything was about to collapse. Instead, the twist came in the way his father reacted. He didn't explode with anger, nor did he ask direct questions. Instead, he walked down calmly, sat in his chair, and with a voice steady but cold, he said he had noticed something months ago. The glances, the silences, the tension, it hadn't gone unseen. He admitted he had been waiting, watching, hoping it would fade on its own. His words hit like a storm. He wasn't angry as much as he was disappointed, afraid of what this meant for the family he had tried to build. That was the climax, everything laid bare, no more secrets left in the shadows. We were forced to confront the truth, not just to each other but to him as well. Yet the final twist came when he said something none of us expected, that it was now our choice. He wouldn't control what we did, but every choice carried consequences, and once we stepped forward, there was no going back. The story didn't end in flames or fury, but in a chilling reminder that sometimes the hardest part of love isn't desire, it's deciding what you're willing to risk for it. After that night, nothing in the house felt the same. The air wasn't filled with silence anymore, it was filled with choices. His father's words echoed in my mind every single day, "It's your decision, but every choice carries consequences." That was the truth we could no longer run from. My stepson and I tried to keep things normal, but every time our eyes met, we both knew there was no going back to what life had been before. The unspoken had been spoken, and the secret was no longer just ours. In the weeks that followed, we avoided late-night talks and quiet moments alone. It wasn't easy. The connection was still there, stronger than ever, but now it came with the weight of reality pressing down harder than before. I watched him wrestle with his own emotions, caught between what he wanted and what he knew could never be without breaking the family apart. And I was fighting the same battle, trying to balance my heart with the life we had worked so hard to build. Eventually, he left for a trip he had been planning for months, and in that space apart, the truth settled in more clearly. Distance gave us perspective. The storm of temptation had passed, but what remained was the realization that love doesn't always mean crossing boundaries. It sometimes means protecting what matters most, even if it hurts. We knew we cared deeply for each other, but we also knew that acting on it would destroy everything we valued. That was the price neither of us was willing to pay. When he came back, we had an unspoken understanding. There was respect in the way we carried ourselves, a quiet agreement that we would leave the past where it was. The journal was tucked away, the moments of tension now just memories, and the family found its rhythm again. His father never brought up that night again, but the warning in his eyes remained, reminding us that some truths can't be erased once they're spoken. Looking back, I realized the real story wasn't about temptation, it was about choice. About how fragile relationships can be when emotions run ahead of reason, and how strength sometimes means walking away. In the end, we didn't choose passion, we chose family. And maybe that was the lesson we both needed. So as this story comes to a close, I want to ask you, do you think we made the right decision? Would you have chosen the same path, or would you have risked everything for love? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let me know if you'd want to see a sequel exploring what might have happened if things had gone the other way. Summary: this true infidelity story follows the dangerous emotional tension between a woman and her adult stepson. From subtle glances to late-night confessions, their connection grows stronger until everything comes to light in front of his father. Faced with a life-altering choice, they must decide between desire and family loyalty. In the end, they choose stability over temptation, but the haunting question